I'm Theo.
And I'm Juliet.
And this is Apologies Accepted.
We offer an entertaining look at some of the big issues in history by examining public apologies of the famous and infamous.
We're looking at politicians, serial killers, actors, and you.
Send us a public apology you would like to make, and we'll read it on the air and give you a chance to redeem yourself or just get some guilt off your shoulders.
We're here for you. Once a week, maybe more if you're really, really sorry. Hi, everybody.
Welcome to Apologies Accepted.
The podcast.
Yay. How are you doing, Theo? Let's just jump right in.
Let's jump right in. I'm not Juliet. You are not Theo.
I'm not Theo. That's right.
That's right.
I forgot who I wasn't.
-2 producer points for you. Yeah, I'm good. We're moving ish. The house goes up for sale next week, and I'm curious as to how many offers will we get within the first hour, because that's sort of a story in Austin. If you sell your house, get ready, because people will take you out to dinner, name their children after you. There was somebody, oh God, I think they were moving in from San Francisco and they wanted to buy a house for $500,000, right? And I don't know which part of Austin, I don't know how big that house was, but 500 isn't going to get you a very big house anywhere.
I was wondering, yeah.
Yeah, but so they were buying this house, and their offer to the owner, who had multiple offers on their home, was, I will buy the house you're selling, and I'm going to buy the house that you're moving to.
Are you kidding?
Yeah, no, I'm not. It was in the news. That wasn't just the only story. The news was like, the crazy things people are willing to do to buy a single family home. And this was one of the things, like, okay, you're selling and you're buying a house that's worth $350. I'll spend $850 to get the house I want.
Holy crap.
Yeah.
That's insane. That's nuts.
Totally agreed. It's like, honey,
that's wild.
Just rent.
Right?
And then wait a year or 2 or 3. It's not like homes are going to be worth $30 million that are now worth $1 million, because who the fuck's going to be able to afford it? Right? Stupid.
That's what I would have thought 10 years ago, but here we are.
Yeah, here we are. But anyway, so yeah, that's kind of me. We went out yesterday to San Antonio to visit our friend and hang out with her, and it was so nice just to get away from staging and cleaning and anybody who's moved.
Isn't San Antonio like 2.5 hours away?
It's an hour and a half ish.
Okay, that's not so bad
without traffic, and then anymore it can be up to 3 hours with traffic. But that's like, no one in Texas knows how to drive, right. So there's plenty of accidents that happen, and so the freeway will get shut down. For sure, you are guaranteed anymore driving between Austin and San Antonio, you're going to come to a patch where the whole road is just closed down to one lane, and there's a fire truck and a cop. And I'm sure it's the same fire truck, and I'm sure it's the same cop. They probably just never get a chance to leave the road, because it's accident after accident every day. But,
Thanks.
Oh well, that's just another example of how I'm the only person who does know how to drive.
Yes, of course.
Right. So there you go.
But you were saying, I'm sorry, you were saying you went to San Antonio.
Oh, it was just so great to get away. And we went out for lunch, and we took the dog, and it was just so nice to be living again, and not like, oh my God, we've got to move all this furniture down to the garage kind of stuff. So yeah. And more exciting than my life, which is
Oh, I'm in Long Beach for the week. I'm totally excited. It's beautiful. I mean, parts of Long Beach are not exactly beautiful, but parts of Long Beach are very nice.
The conditional love of Long Beach, yes.
And the neighborhood that I'm in has these just adorable old houses, and they've been renovated within an inch of their lives and are just amazing. I think a lot of them have been renovated with respect for the period in which they were built. So as far as I can tell, looking in the windows in the middle of the night. Anyway.
Wearing a black mask and goggles, night vision goggles. What are you doing in that house?
Around with a bag over my back, a sack. Yeah, but it's an adorable little town, and there's a Starbucks that's open at 5:00 in the morning, which is really nice. So I got my coffee this morning, which is always a good start to the day. So I haven't had quite enough caffeine yet because I don't have my energy drinks here. So I'm still waking up. Hopefully that won't impact the podcast negatively, but probably will. But that's it. I mean, I'm in this house. It's really cute. It's got beach decor everywhere. It's a studio apartment that I'm Airbnb-ing for the week, and everywhere are little signs that say "relax" and if you're not barefoot, you're not living, and stuff like that. So, and little shells everywhere, design elements of the beach, which is funny because it's not on the beach at all. It's like 3 blocks away from the beach. And it's like totally in a residential neighborhood where people, I'm sure next door is just the regular old, human decor.
Yeah.
So, but it's cute. I mean, like I was saying earlier, if I want, I can just pretend that there's a beach right outside because it's easy with the decor here. So it's fine.
Yeah.
It's relaxing. We went to the beach this morning, me and the dog. Had a good time. There's a dog beach not far from here, so I drove there so I'd know where it was, and we got some nice time in the sand.
Now, when you're out on the beach with a greyhound, can you take her off the leash? Aren't they famous for... Okay.
Nope. Cannot ever take the greyhound off the leash because they're so fast that by the time you tried to chase after them, they would be half a mile away.
Got it.
They're just super, super fast. And they have no sense of direction. They have no idea what streets are. They're literally just dumb as dumps. So they would run out into the street, no hesitation.
I was going to say, I get that no sense of direction thing, but now I understand what you mean, like no knowledge of the world, right?
Right.
When I lived in Long Beach, just to make this about me, I didn't grow up in a house where we used north, south, east, west, beyond like we were Northerners living in the South, right? That's the only time directional words were ever used. So I kind of don't know where north, south, east, or west is. And it wasn't a big issue because whatever, I lived in a place where I knew where everything was.
We always use landmarks like, it's near the Kroger or, half a block from the Pizza Hut.
Go down to the Blue House and you make a left.
Right.
And then you drive to Mrs. McGillicuddy's house and you make a right.
Exactly.
So when I moved to California, I was like, okay, I've learned about directions, and this is easy because there's an ocean, and the Pacific Ocean is west.
And that's west, yeah.
So, except in Long Beach.
Oh, it's not west?
It's not west. It's south.
Uh-oh.
And so for, I'll say, 10, 15 years... people would say, and in a city, people do use directional language, right? So they'd be like, oh, you're going to go north on the 710. You're going to go east on Bellflower, whatever. So I'd be like, okay, there's the water. That's west. Yeah. They told me to go south. And then I turn my body around and wave my hands because I know my right hand is east, right? Cool. So if somebody points me north, I can tell you where everything else is. I just don't know where north is.
Yeah.
Learned many years later that the bay in Long Beach is south. So in Long Beach, the water is south.
So it's not really the ocean. It's a bay.
It's a bay. It's south. Port of Los Angeles. Didn't fucking know that. And
I didn't know that either. I'm glad to know.
Yeah.
I assumed it was
should have told you because Cindy would be like, where's that fucking Starbucks? East.
It was west of here. Awesome. So what else is going on with you? Anything interesting? Your dog is doing well? The dog behaved on your trip to San Antonio?
Dog is very well behaved for a puppy, and there's always that qualifier for a puppy.
For a puppy.
But yeah, he's just such an okay dog.
Such an okay dog.
He's a little bitey. He's trying. He's compared to other puppies, I've been around other dogs that are his age, so he's about 6 months old.
Nightmares.
He's like a superstar.
Good.
So he's very sweet, and he's doing well. Those training lessons, I don't know the word. The dog training lessons for the dog have worked well. Yeah. So,
excellent.
Yeah, thank God. I'll tell you, there were the first month. Oh, I would have giving him back in a hot second. No problem.
And now it would take 2 or 3.
Now I had to think about it, and I'd be sad for a day.
That's good.
Yeah.
So that's really it for my life, I think. I have no other news. No, just Long Beach. That's the only thing going on. Work is going on, but that's it. So this week, to move on to the podcast, since I have nothing else to talk about, we're going to talk about sort of sexism, racism, and homophobia in comedy, and Jeff Singer in particular. So why don't I jump in? How's that sound?
That sounds great, because I can't wait to hear what you found and what you think.
Awesome. I think sexism is great, Theo.
Hey, listen,
there should be more
sexism
of it.
is sexy. Just with a S and M at the end. Oh my God.
my gosh.
best written joke. Okay. It wouldn't play well in real life, but yes. Okay. Sexism is just sexy with S&M. Pray continue.
You should speaking about comedy and sexism and comedy. Okay, so sexism in comedy, to be serious, is a real problem, as is racism and homophobia. In 2018, Chortle did a survey and found out that of 145 female comedians they asked, 26% had been sexually assaulted by one of their colleagues. So to give some statistics for comparison, 20% of all women will be raped in their lifetime, and 1 in 71 men, according to the National Sexual Violence Resource Center. And an online survey by a nonprofit called Stop Street Harassment found that 81% of women and 43% of men had experienced some form of sexual harassment during their lifetime. However, in an article from the Washington Post, Andrew Van Dam reported that only about 0.7% of rapes and attempted rapes end with a conviction for the perpetrator. So women know this and often don't bother reporting assault. RAINN reports that the number of sexual assaults that are actually reported is only about 23%. So imagine that. So only 23% of sexual assaults are reported. That's a huge number of sexual assaults. I don't even want to imagine how many that would be, to be honest. So in Women in Comedy, according to Rachel Healy in The Guardian last year, were shocked to find they experienced sexism among men in the industry regularly, alongside less frequent but more serious sexual harassment, and that for established female artists, this was considered a hazard of the job. Incidents ranged from misogynistic jokes on stage to sexual comments from people in power, and a chillingly common refrain, "I got off lightly," in the face of physical harassment.
Boy, I can't even imagine being a female comic and standing on a stage in the center of a room and having all the attention aimed at you, and then having some jerk ridicule you. Yeah.
Or even standing on stage after some asshole comedian had just made a bunch of homophobic, sexist jokes or homophobic jokes if you're a gay person.
Sure. Although
it's awful.
Well, okay. I know you have more points to get to, but
let's chat.
But sort of at the same time, women and gay people are kind of used to it. You walk into a room and the conversation stops.
That's the way it is.
Or, I certainly have had people say gay things to me. Well, they better, because I'm gay. But no, I've in office situations, I've had colleagues mention gay jokes. But in a work environment, like I keep my personal. Well, I don't want to say I keep my personal life personal, but it's just sort of like work is work, and my home life is my home life. And so I worked with people who didn't know that I was gay, and would say things. It's you build up a skin. It's just sort of like, okay, now women, that's I'm sure more complicated. Because there's sexual aggression involved, whereas with the gay stuff,
you can't really hide that you're a woman. So there's no keeping your being a woman separate from your work life. You're an open target. That would be cool if I could pretend to be a man at work. Anyway,
hey, in the digital age,
maybe,
soon you could be Le Monsieur Jules.
I bet they'll come up with Zoom filters or whatever to make you the opposite sex or a different gender,
or just nondescript,
or just
like
no
just
gender
a
at all.
silhouette.
That would be great. Oh, that would be awesome. Oh my God. Well, I hope they do it soon. All right, so Lindsay Adams made a joke on Twitter, which I thought was funny and sad at the same time. And she said, this was June 8th, she said, "I know things are changing fast, but at least we can rely on comedy lineups to remain the same. Quote, we got a sick lineup of 5 date rapists and 1 woman." So I thought that was funny and sad. A few comics who've been in the news for sexism, sexual assault, racism, or homophobia in the past couple of years or so have been Norm Macdonald, Louis C.K., Roseanne Barr, Dennis Miller, Graham Linehan from UK. He did the IT Crowd. He's a writer. Chris Hardwick, Bill Cosby. Did you know that Bill Cosby had 60 accusers?
I did not know the number, but I knew it was higher than 50. And I'm going to say, this is my Hollywood brag, open secret.
Really?
Open secret. Yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. Don't hang out with Bill Cosby if you're a woman.
Oh my gosh.
They weren't
That's
like
awful.
details, right? It was just simply, don't do that.
Yikes. That's disappointing. I mean, it's good that some people knew about it and were warned in advance, I guess, but it's just disappointing that he would do things like what he did. And it's, to me, 60 accusers is such a huge number. I can't even imagine like how many people didn't come forward and report. Some other people, go ahead.
Or how many people were unaware that they had been drugged, right? And just thought
that's terrifying.
I drank so much I passed out.
Passed out.
Thank God I was with Bill Cosby.
Oh my God. Yikes. And then later on, they must have looked back on that and thought, holy shit.
Yeah.
So in addition to the previous people, also Michael Richards had his N-word item. And of course, there's Woody Allen.
And of course, there's Woody Allen. Which is horrifying, just in general. Besides outright assault, being a woman in comedy means you have to put up with things like bookers often only booking 1 woman per show, and then they turn around and say that women aren't funny because there aren't any women in comedy. Women often have to take the stage after sexist jokes have been told, like I mentioned before, and there's no HR or comedy union to report to in the case of harassment or assault. And if you complain or tell somebody you were assaulted, you might never get another booking. You won't. You're a problem, and who needs you?
You'll be blacklisted. Right, exactly. It's like kind of like at work. Kind of like at work. If you refuse to work with men who have assaulted or harassed someone, you'll lose work. And women in comedy are frequently harassed or belittled while other men present just sit there like idiots and do nothing, which is one of my pet peeves. I mean, I see it all the time with women being talked down to or even outright, harassed, and other men will just be there and not do a thing. And, they don't want to get involved or whatever the hell it is. I don't know, but it's disgusting, I think.
I've not had that situation happen.
That's good.
I'll say that hit my radar. You and I might be standing together and you might say, that's exactly what I'm talking about. And I might be like, right. I don't know what happened. What happened?
Have you ever had people tell like homophobic jokes when you were around and other people
totally.
knew? And other people knew and didn't say anything?
Well,
if you're trying to get by without being
overly gay in the office,
then they wouldn't want to say, Theo's gay.
Yeah, I mean, that lessened over time, but for sure in the 80s, I didn't say a thing, right?
Yeah.
And I just kept it like, I have a lot of sex and I don't want to talk about it because you'll get jealous. All the sex I'm having, right? Which is true. You just fill in the gender. It did lessen, but I remember once in the... I was working for a startup, and this wasn't a tech startup. This was the 80s. It was just a company that was starting, right? And right. I was gay, and my boss was a gay woman, right? And we both knew that the other one was gay, and I forget how we came out to each other, but we did, right? And in those days, it's not so much there were code words, but if you mentioned a bar as a point of reference that was a gay bar, that maybe wasn't a big popular gay bar, that's kind of how you could test, right?
I see.
So anyway, the owner of the company was there, and she, myself, the woman who was the manager of the executive suite office building was also a gay woman, right? So there were three gay people and one straight cisgender man. And he told a gay joke. I don't remember what it was, right? Boy. But it was probably one of those classic ones that, are funny. But then if you think about it, it's like, oh, yeah, you're really highlighting that you find it disgusting. All right, cool. And all three of us laughed.
Wow.
Right? But it was that thing of, he doesn't know that any of us are gay. Right. And he wouldn't be telling this joke if he knew that one of us was gay, right?
Right.
But it's kind of that way that white people talk about black people when they think that everybody in the room is white and shares the same opinion, right? You've probably heard racist stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah. That maybe it wasn't terribly racist, like, let's go burn a cross on someone's yard kind of stuff, but just things that are racist.
No, I had a good friend in high school who was extremely racist, and it was tough. I look back on that and I think, why was I friends with this person? But
I changed.
I don't know, man. Not you. But the things I put up with as a young person, unbelievable, looking back.
Well, that's the fate of young people, right?
I guess so.
You learn, you grow, and then when you're 75, you don't care anymore and you do what you want.
Yeah. So regarding Louis C.K., 5 women who were mostly comedians came forward to report that he had assaulted them. I think it was around 2018. And they all tell a similar story. So 2 of the women reported to the New York Times that in 2002, he invited them to his room after their show for a nightcap. When he asked if he could take out his penis, the women passed it off as a joke, but he proceeded to do so, strip completely naked, and start to masturbate. All of the later accusations involved accounts of him masturbating, whether over the phone or in person, with or without consent. He refused to comment at first, but he eventually wrote out a statement in which he confirms their stories. And this is not a Louis C.K. episode, but I'm just going to read his apology. So he said, "Those stories are true. At the time, I said to myself that what I did was okay because I never showed a woman my dick without asking first, which is also true. But what I learned later in life, too late, is that when you have power over another person, asking them to look at your dick isn't a question. It's a predicament for them." A predicament.
He's always got to get the dick in there.
"The power I had over these women is that they admired me, and I wielded that power irresponsibly. I have been remorseful of my actions, and I've tried to learn from them." So, I mean, the apology, whatever, but he's since gone on, I think, to sort of double down on that what he did was okay and there was no problem with it, and he's kind of being a jerk just generally. So, I don't think,
there's an audience for that type of an approach and that message, and it's sure that MAGA crowd for sure, right? And then kind of men in general not knowing how to talk to a woman anymore because if you even say hi, you'll be accused of sexual assault sort of bullshit. And so... not surprised. I'd love to know what his wife thinks about all of this.
Is he married?
He's got kids. Oh, yeah, I guess you don't have to be married to... Well, he should be by now, I would think.
I think he was divorced. I think he was divorced when he did his show before these things happened.
Oh, maybe.
I think he had the kids like part-time or something. But he told this joke in 2007 before he got caught doing the things that he did. And the joke, now I'm going to tell this joke, and you're probably going to laugh, but it's funny when you think of it as coming from someone taking on the persona of a rapist, not when you think of it being serious, if that makes sense. And I'll just tell the joke. Okay. He said, "I'm not condoning rape, obviously. You should never rape someone. Unless you have a reason, like you want to fuck somebody and they won't let you, in which case, what other option do you have?"
I'd have to hear that joke from him, or
it's not funny coming from me. But if you take it as an ironic comment on the type of person that would say something like that,
who would rape somebody, what's the logic a rapist uses to commit a rape, and
then you can make it funny. But I think people were giving Louis C.K. that latitude earlier on in his career.
Oh, sure, he was edgy.
I think that he was being edgy and smart and ironic and all that sort of thing. But you look back on it now and you think, oh my God.
Yeah. And, and that, of course, takes let's use the word supposition. This is a podcast about words today. that rape is about sex.
Yeah.
Which it's not. So, I don't know. Yeah, it's one of those things where I'd have to see it. And I think that if I was sitting in an audience and it was being done live, I'd be so surprised by that I would laugh. Not the laughter wouldn't be, oh, that's funny, or oh, that's true, or so insightful. The laughter would be, oh, wow, that makes me really uncomfortable.
Right. That could be too. Yeah. Yeah, that would definitely be the case now, for sure. Yeah. I mean, it's a different world than in 2007, believe it or not. 2007 doesn't seem that long ago to me, but it was some time ago.
If you were born in 2007, you're riding a skateboard 14. Now. You're almost driving a car.
Yikes.
Yeah.
So the person we're here to talk about is Jeff Singer, and he was the booker for Montreal's Just for Laughs Comedy Festival's New Faces Showcase. That's a mouthful. And he got in trouble earlier this month for using the N-word repeatedly in front of comics who were auditioning. So Miran Kagani, a stand-up comedian from Boston, posted to social media saying that Jeff Singer had previously used the word at a show. He said he was just repeating verbatim the language of a POC he was talking to, Kagani said in posts on Facebook and Twitter. People tried to stop and educate him, and he just doubled and tripled down. Kagani also said that at a Just for Laughs audition years earlier, Singer dismissed Kagani's comedy, telling him, "I've seen gay before." Kagani continued, "This guy has, for the full span of my own career in comedy, kept a major showcase for talent in my industry. He doesn't see gays or women or people of color or any combination thereof in a progressive or even-handed way." So at that point, other comedians began to share their experiences with Singer on social media, and Jen Kirkman tweeted a thread of anonymous claims of sexism against him, which is gone now. I can't find it anymore. But she said he's been at it decades, and accusations of his sexism, homophobia, and racism are many. So on June 6th, Singer apologized on Facebook, saying, "I was at a comedy club having a conversation with some people, and I made a huge error in judgment. I asked a question and repeated back a phrase that someone said, and it was completely wrong to do that. There was no malice when I said it. Nevertheless, it was 100% wrong, and I should have known better immediately. Clearly, it was insensitive, and I deeply regret it," he continued. "To that end, I submitted my resignation to Just for Laughs over the weekend. I have learned from this experience and will make sure it never happens again. I sincerely apologize privately to the ones directly affected. I apologize to anyone else I offended that night from my thoughtless words. I am imperfect and will take away everything I can from this to do better." Singer did not address the allegations of sexism and homophobia in his statement. That was a pretty lame apology. I mean, it was full of things like...
I'm imperfect is the biggest fucking cop-out of all time. Yeah, no fucking duh.
Yeah,
we all are,
imperfect.
Except for me.
It doesn't give you the right to say the N-word. You know, everyone should know better than to do by now. Long ago, everyone should have known better than to do.
Yeah, it's... and so... Like, the details around the situation are coming from one comic, right? Who basically just says, hey, this guy was doing auditions for comics and he was talking to somebody who was on the stage and he was repeating back what the person on the stage had said. They were having this conversation. The guy was mimicking the language that the person on the stage was using. And I've got to say, like, I looked at, keep wanting to call him Jerry Springer, and I'm going to do it 40 times in this podcast. And I know it's Jeffery Singer, everybody.
Yeah.
So when I call him Jerry Springer, that's not who I'm talking about. I'm talking about Jeffery Singer, the guy in Canada. And so I did a quick Google, like, who is he, right? What's he done? And it's just a lot of nothing. And let me rephrase that. I mean, he's done a lot in comedy. Professionally, he's done a lot, right? But I couldn't find anything interesting. And I read an interview with him, and it was the most boring interview I've ever read, right? Wow. Not his fault. I mean, he doesn't need to entertain me, I guess, but he kind of does because I'm doing a podcast about him. I just didn't find anything. And so what I imagine happened was that this guy, Jeffery Singer, was trying to fit in with the cool kids by mimicking them and by using their language and make himself interesting, because it's not to me, right? I got to put that in there so I don't get sued. How dare you? I'm very interesting. I'm suing you. And so that's what I think happened. I don't think it was a, well, I mean, he's, according to Jeffery Singer, he wasn't being malicious. He wasn't calling anybody the word, right? But to your point, hey, Jeff, we've all gotten the memo. We know you got the memo too.
Yeah, totally.
But you're trying too hard to be edgy, right? And he's been in the comedy circuit basically his whole entire professional career.
Time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He started off as a teen production assistant with Montreal Just for Laughs comedy festival. So like this base is his home. It's a place he's been working in for 30 years, decades.
Wow,
we can say that, right? And so, yeah, I just, and within comedy, comics talk to each other, right? And I've shared my distaste for being in a group of comics with you previously, because they keep trying to one-up each other, and things can get real dicey. Everybody wants to be the edgiest person, say the most outrageous thing, come up with the best joke. Yes, anding each other nonstop. And they do have conversations about language and the power of words. So he's aware of who can and can't. And he's aware that there's a dialogue around this word.
Yes. You'd have to be an idiot not to. Not that he's not an idiot.
Well, yeah, right. You'd have to be an idiot not to, and do it anyway. Yeah. And I've got some stuff on that when we get to that point.
Okay.
So, yeah, it's a very poor apology. It doesn't sound like poor me. It sounds more like I have an excuse for what happened. Right. And I understand that, because if I was in his shoes, I would probably have just said if you grabbed me and said, hey, you did this thing and you need to apologize, I would cough up something probably similar. I did this bad thing, but I have reasons for it. Don't think poorly of me, right? I would need a day to process it and then craft out the perfect apology.
And some of it is, I think you want to explain how you happen to be in that position to say something or to do something that would hurt somebody. But I don't know that. I guess the point is that it's not necessarily helpful to explain. So that's why we don't like explanations in our apologies.
Well, explanations that let us off the hook, right?
Yeah.
I hurt you. I am sorry for that. And later, if you want to talk about what this all stemmed from, let's have a separate conversation about situation and circumstances. But for right now, in this moment when I'm apologizing, I'm really sorry, and I'm going to do this thing to show you that not only am I contrite, but I'm willing to learn.
Right. Yeah, that's the best way to apologize.
It's the only way, according to us, just now.
We're the apology experts. Hey, we're apology experts now.
We are, after 31 episodes, we are totally apology experts. That's the sorriest apology I've ever heard.
He said he resigned. I'm not sure if he resigned or was invited to resign. But Just for Laughs released a statement confirming his resignation. They said, we acknowledge those who came forward this past weekend and shared their experiences. JFL has a commitment to listen and provide a safe and respectful workplace. To that end, Just for Laughs has a strict code of conduct policy. We do not tolerate abusive, inappropriate, or vexatious behaviors.
Just love that word.
Anyone working with Just for Laughs must treat fellow artists, industry, employees, and audiences with equality, respect, and dignity. I don't know why they put that word in there, because...
Vexatious?
I'm sure a lot of their comedians are edgy, and that could be considered vexatious.
Well, my guess is, total guess, right, that behind the microphone in front of an audience, have at it. Go wild. Let the audience judge you, right? But when the mic is off and you're talking to a production assistant, right, the edginess doesn't but who knows, right?
I don't know.
Yeah.
I'm really curious. It's not a word you see every day at all. So I wonder, I mean, it was put in there for a reason, and I really am curious as to who put that in there and why. I'll never know, I suppose.
Well, there'd be no way of finding out. Like, we couldn't call them and ask.
I wonder what would happen
It'd
if I
be
did.
the easiest thing in the world. You know, they aren't fielding 1,000 calls, right? We could probably get an answer to this. We call them and just be like, "Why Vexatious? What's up?"
I'm tempted.
Let's. You know what? Let's see. Let me table that because
Okay,
maybe
yes, let's put a pin in
yeah,
that.
we'll put a pin in that because that would be fun. Because I will say this, having heard that, I read that statement, right? I was like, all right, corporate speak,
Yeah.
blah blah blah, right? We don't tolerate this. But having heard you read that, I'm going to say I bet he was invited to resign because that statement is so. It nails the door shut on, oh, but we're comics. Oh, sorry, everybody. Nope, no pass here.
Yeah.
And that sounds like something and I'm sure there's more there. Like, he probably wasn't asked to resign for using the N-word. He probably was asked to resign because somebody somewhere came forward and said, he has made me uncomfortable, or,
Or 15 people came forward and said,
right,
here's what he's done. Or they read Jen Kirkman's thread. Or any
which
number
has been
of other
deleted.
Yeah, it's too bad.
Which, I'd like to.
I don't know if she was threatened with being sued. And she doesn't strike me as the kind of person who would do it out of just a simple fear of being sued. She's kind of bold.
She's out there. I mean, in a good way. So, I don't think it was I mean, maybe it was kind of like, hey, honey, this is a nail in your coffin of your career. So
I don't know that she would care. I mean, she talks about not even wanting to do stand-up anymore.
she has a podcast. So she doesn't really need to work anymore.
Do you listen to her podcast?
No.
Okay.
But not because I don't like her. I don't know her. Oh my God, I sound like Mariah Carey. I don't know her.
I don't know her. I'd listen to her podcast, and she takes some getting used to, I think. But in the end, I've decided that I do like her. So it would be interesting if you listened to an episode and told me what you think.
I'll listen to an episode. I've got time today. I'll just be moving. So cool. Why not?
Yeah, right. Nothing else you got to do. She's very
but I could put my
outspoken,
AirPods in and boom.
Oh, yeah, totally.
Yeah. Actually, that's what I would be doing. I'd be listening to a podcast anyway because that's what I do. Who cares? Why am I talking?
Do you have an iPhone 12? Do not upgrade, everybody. Do not upgrade to 14.6 because I have the iPhone 12 Super Max Pro or whatever the hell it is, and it's a big one. But anyway, if you have an iPhone 12, what do you mean no?
No, I should not be trusted with that much firepower. I have iPhone 3SX or whatever it is, and it's like $350, and it plays podcast. I get text messages. I can take a photo.
That's all I really need.
That's all.
I don't know why I have this gigantic thing, but sometimes I watch movies on it, which is kind of nice. But anyway, if you have an iPhone 12, do not upgrade to 14.6 because they fucking screwed the pooch with their podcast upgrades, and it totally hosed the entire podcast thing. So it's just fucking impossible to use now, and it's heating up my battery like nobody's business. Plus my battery life has gone from 16 hours to 2. So screw you, Apple.
Yeah.
You're the worst sometimes.
Thanks for the update. I've had the same issues with my little 3SX, which is paid for
really?
now. Yeah. So
yeah, they sent me an email saying you can get the tiniest iPhone available if you'd like, and I'm like, I have the biggest iPhone on the planet. Why would I want to upgrade to a tiny one? Like, there's a reason that I have a big one, right? Why would they ask me anyway? It's just neither here nor there. Sorry, podcast listeners. So that's mostly what I have for Jeff Singer. Did you have some more you wanted to share?
Oh, yes, I do. Because here we are again.
Awesome.
Somebody is sorry for using the N-word. And why are you sorry for using the word that you use? Because you clearly felt you had a right to use it. And we had covered, I forgot Michael, what's his name? Kramer.
Richards.
Yes, thank you. Doing a set and screaming the word at a member in the audience, right? And so, so we've done that, and this was different. It wasn't somebody calling somebody a name or trying to. I guess it's somebody trying to be edgy, but so it got into this whole like, where's this word come from? Why is it a bad word, right? And we can connect those dots without having to do a lot of research because we sort of all know collectively as a culture what this word means, why is it bad. But I went to some resources to hear from Black intellectuals. And I hate to use that word intellectuals, but when I Google, okay, so one, my Google history is kind of scary anymore thanks to this podcast. And so when I Googled what's the history of and then I had to type the N-word out.
Oh, no.
Yeah, and I was looking over my shoulder like, is anybody seeing me type this word out?
You're sitting there in the library typing out the N-word.
So fucking uncomfortable. Like, it's not a word that, in my immediate family, right? Meaning my mother, my sister, and I, it's not a word we used. It wasn't a word that was in the house. It wasn't a word that blah. Now, our extended family, I have one relative who will use that word upon occasion, right? And she's very clear to say, but I'm talking about a white person behaving like an N-word, right? It's like, okay, got that. Okay, cool. And I have spoken with her about my feelings around the use of the N-word in front of me. I'm not going to tell you what you can and can't say. I'm just going to tell you what my ear holes make me. I think less of you when I hear the word come out of your mouth, right? And I love you and I value you and I think highly of you. And I don't want you to give me reasons to think less of you, right? So America's hero, all right?
Yeah, totally.
So cool. I don't have a lot of personal experience with this word. It's just not my thing. So not saying it is perfectly fine. And so when I Googled the history of, and then I used the N word, literally N-word, and then I spelled out the word, right? Yeah. My returns on Google were super interesting. When you type in the N word, you get a lot of academics, right? Showing up, right? And it's the New York Times, it's the Washington Post. It's not the Washington Post, it's the most important paper in the world, but it's the one I remembered. It was a number of professors writing essays on the word. And then when you type in the full word, it's a lot of Wikipedia. It's a lot of like PBS and BBC, right? So the discussion around this word, according to my Google search, has moved into the realm of academia. The culture is kind of like, okay, yeah, on the street, people are using this. Some people feel like they can. Some people feel like they can't. What's up? And so I will start with, let's look at the word itself. So the earliest known published use of the term dates from 1574 in a work alluding to the blank word of Ethiop, bearing witness. And the first derogatory use of the term was recorded 200 years later in 1775. The word appears in colonial America in 1619. John Rolfe used a variation of spelling in describing the African slaves shipped to a Virginia colony. And then during the 18th and the 19th century, the word was used to describe an actual labor category which African American laborers adopted for themselves as a social identity. So the word comes from the Latin, it means black, and then some other variations of the N-word, being the word Negro, come from Spanish, Portuguese, but ultimately stemming back to Latin for black, right? So terrific. That's where the word comes from. In the 1800s up through the 1840s, the word had a very different application. It was used by mountain men or fur trappers to describe themselves, and it was sort
of white.
Well,
Okay.
so fur trappers were white, but also First Nation, Native American, right? And then
Okay.
we did have black fur trappers as well. Not a lot, because you would need to be a freed person of color, I suppose.
Okay.
But so yeah, and it seems to have had the same value as the word dude or guy, right? Hey
Okay.
man, hey dude, hey guy. It wasn't a term. It was not used as a term exclusively for blacks among mountain men during this period. Indians, Mexicans, Frenchmen, and Anglos alike could be the N word. And
Was it used by lower class people?
they didn't say, but I'll say this: have you ever met a mountain man?
I cannot say that I have.
You would say lower class.
Okay.
Yeah, because they trap animals for money, and then
They're edgy.
They're edgy. Yes.
Okay. Gotcha.
So no, they basically were sort of wild woodmen who trap things, right? Okay, and so there's our history. And then where did my search take me? So of course I went straight to Ta-Nehisi Coates. Gotta love everything that he says, and he addressed this question from an audience member. A white girl stood up and said, "My friends sing this in rap songs when they sing rap songs. My friends are white. Makes me uncomfortable. What are your thoughts?" And so he uses a couple of examples, and he was like, my wife and her girlfriends, they'll use the word bitch, and I do not join in their conversations and use that word, right? Not my word. And then he used an explanation where words have no power or meaning in and of themselves. They need to be in context to be understood, right? And he uses the word honey. His relationship with his wife, it's a word that they use between the two of them. Their relationship allows them to use that word. If they're walking down the street and another total stranger walks by, a woman, and says to him, "Oh, hi, honey," right? That word then has a different context and different meanings, and there's going to be a problem, right? So in Ta-Nehisi Coates' viewpoint, sort of the bottom line, he believes that white people feel like the N-word is theirs because the language is theirs. We're speaking English. This is a word that they used themselves back before black people were considered humans. And so they feel they have a right to use it. It's their word. They also feel that they have a right to use it because white people move freely through the world, whereas black people do not move freely. By taking the word away, black people are allowing white people to examine and consider what it means to not have a right to do something that is as basic as using a word, which I thought was an interesting point.
That is interesting.
Yeah. And then I would encourage everybody right now to put us on pause, go to YouTube, and look for Elizabeth Strauder Pryor of Smith College. And her lecture, her TED Talk, Why It's So Hard to Talk About the N-Word. And we'll take a moment. Tick, tock, tick. Okay, great. You've listened to it. So, because she's amazing and how she talks about the history of the word, its meaning in social context, the power of the word, the freedom of speech. In her 20-minute lecture, she delivers all of that, right? And sort of her final analysis is the problem is in our discussion of the word. We talk about it as if it's a word, but the N word, and here, she doesn't use the word. She uses the euphemism, the N word. And when she started her academic career, she was worried that other professors, other scholars wouldn't take her seriously as a scholar because she refused to type the word, say the word, speak the word. You use it in her class, you stop using it in the class, right? Yeah. So she wouldn't be seen as serious because she's afraid to say the word. But sort of her personal viewpoint is saying the word, it gives it power, and she doesn't want it in her mouth. But what I loved was sort of this takedown of the word. So the argument is it's just a word, and the big question on social media is who can say it and who can't. But we're talking about the word wrong. Fundamentally, the N-word is an idea disguised as a word. The idea is that blacks are inferior in every way to white people. Inferiority means that the inequality black people experience is their own fault. You're experiencing inequality because you're not equal. I'm sorry, right? Speaking of the word as just a word makes it sound like it's a disease in America's vocal cords that can be snipped right out, and it can't. We have to talk about the idea behind the word, right? And she was surprised as she moved through her teaching career to encounter students who thought that the euphemism, the N-word, had just sort of always been around, right? But it wasn't always around. It didn't really come into play until the late 1980s when black college students and intellectuals started using the euphemism as opposed to the real word, specifically and on purpose, because they didn't want to give that word power. I forgot the name of the polling agency, but it's the big one, the Pew?
Sure.
Yeah, I think it's the Pew. Anyway, so a big...
Gallup?
No, it wasn't Gallup. I want to say it was Pew, but like Pepe Le Pew. We'll reference all of our earlier podcasts. 70% of all adults surveyed said it's never appropriate to use the word.
Oh, good.
Yeah. And then my last shout out is to the Black Language Podcast and the host, Anasa, who introduced me to something I didn't know was a thing on Twitter. And it's the AAVE, which is the African American Vernacular Expression, right? And her stance is that white people in general, right, are obsessed with black culture, but that obsession does not carry over to the actual people, right? So the white people are adapting terms, using terms, right? And then judging other people, judging black people for using the same terms and seeing them as less, right?
Right.
I, the white person, am using all of these fun street words I've just learned that sound so fun to my ears. And then I hear you say them and you're black. And I'm like, oh my God, what a horrible person, right? And she uses an example of well, I'm forgetting the young lady's name, but during the Trayvon Martin trial, he was on the phone with his best friend, who was a Haitian American girl, right? Teen girl. And she was the star witness. And she speaks English with Haitian dialect. And so her grammar's all over the place. It's very Ebonics. It's very Ebonics. That's not even an expression, everybody. But there you go. That's the best I got right now. And the jury sort of discounted her testimony because they couldn't understand her. It was the whole white jury, right? And that was sort of the bottom line. We didn't believe her. We didn't understand her. And we didn't ask for any clarification because she didn't count. It doesn't matter, right? Because she's a black person who's speaking a black dialect, right? So we don't need to worry about what she said, right? Even though what she said was Trayvon Martin was running away from the guy on the phone with her, right? Yeah. Not that he was the aggressor, which was sort of the narrative that was presented at the time. So cool. So the Black Language Podcast presents that one snapshot of black language and the harm it can have. And then another snapshot where on Jerry Springer, a white girl who was just, funny that it's Jerry Springer. And I said I was going to mess it up. And I actually do mean Jerry Springer right now. He had a show where he had a 13-year-old girl, and the name of the episode was something like, "Help, I hate my 13-year-old who's a knife-wielding, gun-toting, drug mule, blah, 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 horrible kid," right? Long title. And they misspelled the word horrible. No. But, I mean, that was it, right? It was this long title, awful kid, 13-year-old girl, get up on the stage, and she said something like, "I'm going to meet you outside," when
Catch
talking.
Outside.
Oh, there you go. Yeah. And that became a meme, right? She's now a rapper called Bad Baby. And she was using black vernacular on the Jerry Springer show.
Yeah.
And now, because of that
famous.
and that persona, right, she's famous and rich. So black language in the mouth of a white person equals success.
Totally fine.
Black language in a black mouth, no power,
That's an
no
interesting
good.
observation.
Yeah, like wow. And then this whole thing about AAVE, there's a whole thing on Twitter about people asking, can I use this word? Can I use that word? What about the word y'all? Is that a black word I shouldn't be using anymore? People who are like, I sort of want to know how as an ally can I support the movement? It's not people trying to be ridiculous and saying, well, can I use the word the? Right? It's not. Well, I'm sure that's in there because it's Twitter.
Oh, I'm sure.
Right? Yeah. But yeah, I found all that interesting, and that it got me uninterested in grammar. So I've just thrown all that away. It got me lots of stuff. But then I started thinking, okay, great. I know there's words that have slipped out of usage, like the word overmorrow, which is my favorite unused word because it just so explains the day after tomorrow so well. Overmorrow. And I'm trying so hard to bring that word back. But there's loads of words that have fallen by the wayside that we're not using now that some people still want to use. I mean, there's Asian slurs, there's gay slurs. We don't use the R word anymore, right? And so the ideas that are associated with that word haven't changed in over 200 years. It's probably always going to be a problematic word in the English language. And I agree with Ta-Nehisi Coates. White people feel the world is theirs and we move through it without being dictated to. And if a black person is going to tell a white person what to say, well, then I got problems with that and I'm going to say it anyway. I don't get the need to say the word. It's not even a particularly nice sounding word,
No, I mean, no, it's not a nice word in any sense, right?
Right.
So I don't think anyone should have to use it. And I would as you said, I would distrust and judge anyone who did.
Yeah, totally.
White people.
White people. And then, and with when I hear it used by black people, I just sort of like reserve judgment. Or not even reserve judgment, right? It's sort of like, okay, not my word.
Not my thing, right?
And I'll say I don't listen to rap, so it's not a word that gets featured in my consumption of art or music, right?
Yeah.
But I do listen to podcasts by professors, etc. And the word may come up every now and then, and it's within a context, and I understand it, and yada yada yada. What I was going to say was the other thing that Ta-Nehisi Coates mentioned is lots of groups have words that they use that are derogatory among themselves, but that makes them familiar and implies a sense of family, right?
Right.
The word then becomes endearing. And he said, so there's gay people have those words, right? Women have those words, bitches, right? Or the C word. And that it's only black people who are being told, you can't use this word even amongst yourselves if I can't say it.
Yeah.
Right. And that, is striking to him and quite clearly a racist viewpoint. My friend Terry and I have a word that we use with each other. There were 4 of us in this little group, and we all had the same word, which was chica. So we'd call each other chica, right? And it came from one night we were out at a bar, and Terry and I both thought that the same guy was cute. And we both started walking over to introduce ourselves at the same time. And I turned to Terry and I said, I'll cut you, chica. Right? From those 1950s movies that were always like the tough girl would like pull out a switchblade and say,
right.
I'll cut you, chica. Right? I always thought that was funny. So we use that word amongst ourselves, and it's a word that we use, and it's not all the time, and it's gotten less over time. And it can be used in fun. It can be used in anger, right? But James will try and use it, and I don't like it.
It
It's
doesn't fit,
wrong, right?
Yeah.
And so, yeah, there are just words that some people don't get to use. I was
Yeah.
taking a course called Black Queer Literature and Film, and one of the books that it was a play, we're looking at was called Love Conjure Blues by Sharon Bridgeforth. And in the play, there's a character whose name is N-word red, but it's not the euphemism, it's the word, right?
Yeah.
And so the professor, before we started the book, said, hey everybody, and she was a woman of color, right, and gay, and she was like, listen, we need to have a talk about one of the characters' names because there's a word that's going to appear. And while I might say I'm not comfortable, I want to know, where do you guys stand? And so this was a predominantly, I'm trying to come up with a percentage. I'm going to say like out of the 30 people in the class, 3 of us were white. Okay. I was the only old person. Pretty much everybody was some version of queer, right? And there was like one poor blonde white girl from Texas who this was the only class that was open that she needed that she could take at that time of day. And every class was a fucking journey for her.
Oh, no.
But what was cool was to see her, I don't want to say like see her development or see her growth, right? But in the beginning, she wasn't even sure about saying the word gay. And asked about that, and like we're reading works that have the word cocksucker in it, and it's like, you can say gay.
Yes, honey, you can say gay.
Bless you and give you that permission, right?
Only you,
and only in this room, and only when it's in type, right?
That's right.
But so anyway, so the class, again, predominantly people of color, there were such issues around. I thought there was going to be a lot of like, it's okay if a person of color says it, but even within that, there were discussions around how much color does that person have, right?
Oh,
you get a brown person say it, or do you have to be black? And if you are, black, and you don't want to say it, should you have to? I mean, it went all over the place, but the consensus was this is a charged word, and so whenever we see it, we just simply won't say it. Mm-hmm. And that was a very safe space and a brilliant move on the part of the professor to have a discussion about that word and its power and its impact and its meaning and its place, and not asking people directly, what do you personally think about the word? It was more, what do you think about other people saying the word? And I think that kind of framework allowed for a more honest dialogue.
Interesting.
Yeah, it was.
Sounds like a good class.
Oh, it was a phenomenal class. The things that happened in that class, we had the shooting and the lockdown in that class, and that was fun. Yep. Welcome to 21st century America in the educational system. It was a great class. But anyway, enough about that class. And so, I'll say for me, it's very clear cut. On a personal level, don't need to hear it, don't need to say it.
Okay.
And when so this guy's Jerry Springer's apology? No, everybody, it's Jeffrey Singer.
So what do we rate his apology? Let's rate his apology on a scale of 1 to 10.
It's easy 2.
Yeah, I'd give it a maybe a 1 because it's not even sincere. I'm sure he's not going to change. I'm sure he was forced to resign. He probably thinks he didn't do anything wrong. The apology was worded fine, but it just seemed insincere. So because it was insincere, it gets a 1.
Yep, seemed insincere. There was a lot of yes, but in the apology, and there's a promise to try and do better. But there's the big out, I'm not perfect. So,
exactly.
It could be better.
Boo to this apology.
You need to call Ellie Kemper, Jeff, and ask her how to craft a good apology, because she'll tell you.
Or call us, and we'll just charge you, a few $1,000s to teach you how to make an apology.
Oh, yeah, right. I was like, will we? Oh, yeah, we will. For a few $1,000s? Totally.
A service.
You can just listen to every episode of his podcast, and that'll be your punishment.
No, but we do a consulting service as well on the side. So we'll give you personalized service for just a few $1,000s.
Totally.
Yeah. So who's sorry now? Do we have any who's sorry nows this week? Is anyone sorry?
We do. That's an interesting idea. Maybe what we should do for who's sorry now. I mean, I know we have our own apologies to keep us humble, right?
Yes. Which is hard. We have to be humbled every week.
Well, it's
forcibly.
We're imperfect. So maybe we should add a component of like who should be sorry now, right? Like what news thing is like but yeah, I mean, I will say that I'm sure I'm sorry now, and I'm trying to think of like a language usage thing, and I can't. So it would have to be I'm sure, now I'm trying to think of a specific example. I'm sure I've said stuff to try and fit in with a group that made people uncomfortable because it just wasn't natural. So how about, can I do a general apology for using, adopting, wearing language and/or clothing, I guess, I don't know, personas that weren't true to who I am because I was so desperately trying to fit in, like this Jeffery Singer guy, who I'm not going to call Jerry Springer, trying to fit in with the comic crowd by using their words. So general apology for having been a douche upon occasion because I was trying to fit in.
Do you have any examples?
No, but I do have one. That this isn't the same thing, but it sort of is.
That's good enough.
I was drunk at a bar and I decided, and I was taking a French class. And so I decided that I was only going to speak the French that I knew.
Yeah.
And so I ended up talking to these two guys, and I got myself in this little bit of a problem because I had been pretending to be French. And speaking... And
you ran out of vocabulary.
Yeah, well, it wasn't speaking to them in French. I was speaking to them in perfect English, just with a very fake French accent. But they sort of believed me. And then they would try and test me by saying outrageous things in English to see if I reacted.
Oh, no.
Yeah. And so I will say to those guys, I am sorry that I was amusing myself at your expense and I wasn't making fun of you or trying to be clever. It just seemed like a really fun thing to do at the time. I'm sure they don't care or remember.
So I didn't think I had an apology, but I do have an apology. And I couldn't think of any examples of anything I had said that was offensive in any way ever. In any way ever. Anything I'd said that would make someone uncomfortable or was in some way, racist or sexist or homophobic. And that I just didn't know that there are probably things that I've said, probably many things I've said that have been those things. And I just was not aware of it. And so then I realized that in itself is something I should apologize for not being aware of the things that I say, not being conscious enough of some of the statements that I make that may be offensive. And for that, I apologize.
Me too. That's my apology too. I'll jump on yours.
Okay. That's good. All right. Well, I think that's it for today. Any last minute words? Any words of wisdom?
Oh, no. I mean, there's always last minute words, but words of wisdom. Yes. My words of wisdom are don't move. Everybody never move. Stay where you are. I'm never going to move. I'm going to stay where I am. There's no problem there. So I will take your advice. Oh, lucky. All right, everyone, good luck. I hope it's not too hot where you are. I hope the world doesn't overheat and kill us all in the next thousands of years. Good luck. Good luck. Good luck with that global warming, everybody. I'm out of here. And good night. Goodbye. Thank you
for listening to Apologies Accepted, the podcast.
You can find links to the articles and the sources in the show notes.
To submit an apology or find out more, visit us at apologiesaccepted.net, where you can also find our merchandise.
We're on Twitter at Apologies Accepted.
And on Instagram at apologies.accepted.
You can support our important work at Patreon.com/Apologies Accepted.
And fuck Facebook.
Bye.
Bye.